I'd like to welcome you all to the first virtual Salesforce for Public event in partnership with OwnBackup. For those of you that might be new to our events, Salesforce for Public is the largest private community of Salesforce professionals who are looking to progress their careers. As part of the community, we provide career advice and insights, thought leadership, and hidden opportunities to support your career in the ecosystem. So this evening, we're joined by Matthew Kennedy, the Senior Director of Partner Enablement at OwnBackup. Without further ado, I will introduce you to Joe, who will talk a bit about OwnBackup.
Thanks very much. So yeah, just very quickly from me. So my name's Joe Birtle. I'm the Director of Marketing for EMEA for OwnBackup, and very pleased to be working with these guys at the moment on a few different initiatives, and it's great to see so many people on. But a quick introduction to OwnBackup. So OwnBackup, for anybody who doesn't know, we're a leading SaaS data protection platform. We do now also offer data security and governance software following our recent acquisition of RevCult, who some of you may be familiar with as well. We have been ranked as on Forbes Cloud 100 as one of the world's top private cloud companies. And we have over 400 five-star reviews on the Salesforce App Exchange, which makes us the leading data protection solution for Salesforce. And we have in quick succession raised around 500 million in funding, including from Salesforce Ventures, which values us at over $3 billion. So just a bit of context there. And we do also have more than 4,000 customers now who are using OwnBackup solutions. So growing very, very rapidly. And with that, I'm going to hand you over to Matt, who's going to lead the session today.
Yeah, so thanks for joining today. I'm always humbled when people take time out of their day to attend a session like this. It's very nice of Salesforce Republic to invite me. I hope you find it interesting. I want to start with a little bit about me. I've been in technology for 30 plus years now. So Joe, you and I were just talking, 10 years in the Salesforce ecosystem, but I've been doing this for a long time. I'm married with 3 grown children. So I met my wife, Karen, back in the 80s, and we've been together ever since. My son, Liam, that you see in the picture here, just recently earned his Salesforce admin certification, and he's now a data analyst in New York City. So really proud to see him kind of following along this path. My daughter, Jane, is a registered nurse in Philly. And my youngest daughter, Kira, she's actually in her last year of college as a computer science major. And she interned with OwnBackup product development team this past summer and began working with Salesforce. So Salesforce has been so good to me that I've been encouraging my children to get involved. And it's really awesome to see them as they start their career journeys. I try to exercise several days a week. I know most people try. It's always a challenge. I like to jump rope. I try to lift weights. But to clear my head and get steps in, I walk our dog typically a few miles most nights of the week. I'm not a huge fan here in the US. We just went through daylight savings time, so it is getting darker earlier and the cold weather's coming in. But it is a great way to get moving, and my dog loves it. She looks forward to it every night now. So I try to make that happen as often as I can. I'm an average golfer, but I do love playing with friends and just enjoying a day outside. As you can imagine, most of my days are normally spent on Zoom meetings like this. So any chance I get to go out in nature, I want to take advantage of that. I'm a huge music nerd, mostly alternative rock, but I suffer from tinnitus. I don't know if any of you do, but I have constant ringing in my ears. So I absolutely hate silence. If I'm not on a call, then I have music playing. It's just, I need that background noise at all times. I read every day. I want to stay curious and always keep learning. I'll share with you here my LinkedIn connection. If you just go to LinkedIn and search for Matthew Kennedy, or my Twitter at MATK62. You can find my Twitter. I try to stay really active on social media as well. I think it's huge in the Salesforce community to make those connections and to share information. And then lastly, my email, just very simple, mat@ownbackup.com. I'm happy to connect with anybody after this call if you like what I've presented on today. So that's a little bit about me, but I would like to share some lessons that I've learned over the years. So first lesson, plan for the future, but focus on the now. I've been working with Salesforce for over a decade, but I also had several other roles earlier in my career. It's very easy to always be looking ahead, but I found that if you excel in your current role, then good things will happen. So where did I start? I went to school, I got my associate's degree in computer science, and then I went on to earn a bachelor's degree in business administration. And what that did is gave me a nice balance of tech and business that would kind of help shape my career. My first job was at a small startup software company. I was referred by a friend from college, and yes, many times it's who you know that can be more important than what you know. I'm a huge proponent of connections. At this company, I was employee number 7, and I did programming with some sales support. And this company raised money and wanted to be big, but really grew too fast. I was just out of college. I didn't really know any better. I was following along, and, we were working out of a basement. And the next thing you know, we upgraded to a big office, lots of new hires. Soon our expenses exceeded our income. And that's just a recipe for disaster. So we got caught looking too far ahead instead of ensuring that we remained profitable as we grew. That company kind of faded out, and I wound up moving on to work for a manufacturing company for a few years. I also went and spent time at a consumer goods company that was selling sports equipment, which I absolutely loved because I was able to dress casually and exercise every day. So that was a huge bonus at that company. I then joined another software company as a business analyst and developer. And this was great experience for me. And I worked really hard, but this company was struggling with sales. And after a few years, I had a vested interest. So I kept plugging away, hoping that things would improve. Now, on the bright side, I was able to work from home, and I was lucky to see my kids grow up and spend lots of time with my family. So while I was very happy with my personal life, my career had stalled. And that really brings me to lesson 2. And lesson 2 is forgive yourself. When you make a mistake, we all make them. It's hard. Nobody's perfect, and you're going to have mistakes. And as you move on from them, that's really going to shape, how your career progresses. So I had spent over 10 years at this business trying to build it, and it's really tough to move on. When you've invested that much time, it's difficult to kind of change. But I think we're all resistant to that change, and it's much easier to stay with what you know. But the sooner you accept that change is necessary, the better. So fortunately for me, I was introduced to Salesforce back in 2009, and I started using it as our everyday CRM system. We were a pretty small company, so the classic, accidental admin, I started doing basic admin tasks like creating custom fields, changing page layouts, and creating reports. And I found this really interesting, but I didn't see Salesforce as a career path just yet. That all changed in 2014. I attended a Salesforce World Tour in Philadelphia, and I met so many people that were just raving about the Salesforce ecosystem. They were all doing really well, and it kind of opened my eyes to the possibilities, to do something in this ecosystem. I wound up joining several user groups. Because I live in New Jersey, I was able to go to New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia. There's lots of options here in the Northeast of the US, and I could attend meetings almost every week. Sometimes there was more than one in the same week. So I really learned a lot from the speakers at these meetings, but even more from the user group leaders and the members who were willing to share their knowledge with the rest of the group. I think the networking at these events was invaluable. I know we're all doing these virtual events, and they're great, and you have a lot of value in them, but there's nothing like in-person events. I'm really excited that they're starting to come back. As a user group leader in New Jersey, I was able to go to Dreamforce back in September, which was amazing to actually go to a live event again. And next month in New York City, there's going to be something called Dreamforce to You, which is kind of like a world tour event, but again, it's an in-person, it's a smaller gathering, but it is nice to see these things start happening again. I know next year they're already talking about going out on the road for different countries, and things like London Calling will be coming back. So great to get those in-person events again. So in this time, when I was going through all these user group events and networking, I was really energized by all the potential of a career in the Salesforce ecosystem. But how do you pivot to something new? If you're on this call today, maybe that's something you're struggling with. So that brings me to my next lesson, which is put things in perspective. You have to understand the importance of the current emergency, right? We all deal with quote unquote emergencies every day. Now, I'm not saying that these are not important. They most definitely are. You just need to find a balance between everyday work and your long-term goals. So lucky for me, my timing was good. As I began my search, I was able to leverage several different resources. The first, Salesforce launched Trailhead back in 2015. It's easy to take this for granted today, but at the time, it was a game changer 6 years ago. I mean, Trailhead has really evolved and grown over that time, but it was just starting out then. I think there was 100 badges and they built on top of that, but it really helped me. I started earning badges and I got more interested in getting certified. It's one thing to be an accidental admin, but it's quite another to study all the different parts of the platform, and become an expert in it. I did a deep dive into the security model. I wanted to better understand things like profiles, permission sets, sharing rules. These are all such key concepts for anyone who wants to customize a Salesforce org to meet their company's unique requirements. I got more comfortable with all the options available in Salesforce setup. I started in Classic. I went over to Lightning. I was learning all these different features. And I think for me, and probably for most of you, what set Trailhead apart from other training at the time was the integration with developer orgs. Instead of just reading about a feature, you had to complete challenges that would be verified by the platform. I mean, this was very new at the time, and it's really evolved over the years. Now, these challenges can sometimes be frustrating as you work through solving a problem, but it makes for a great learning experience to try different strategies until you find that right solution. This will force you to search the web for answers, post questions in the community, and learn from others. I think sifting through search results is a key skill for every technical person. I'm sure we're all in Google every day searching for answers on whatever problems we're currently working on. So the sooner you learn to do that and navigate through those results, that's really going to benefit you. Now, for me to put my new knowledge to good use, I launched a project to create a cloud version of the software that I was currently working on, but now on the Salesforce platform. I learned so much working with a consultant. We were writing Apex code and navigating Salesforce Security Review to get our app listed on the App Exchange. And I think, sometimes the best way to get experience is to pitch a project at your current company. The company can benefit from a new solution while you gain valuable skills to add to your resume. Real world projects carry so much weight with potential employers. This can quickly separate you from other candidates. I'll challenge everybody on the call, and maybe at the end you can let me know, but is there a problem that you are currently struggling with? See if you can find a solution and build your own skill set on a new project, right? A success story is a common interview question. Show potential employers that you have the initiative to get the job done. Now, I'm a pretty patient person, and I did bide my time in this current role while continuing my search. And this taught me that less is more. Appreciate what you have. Instead of focusing on only what I wanted, I was stuck in my career. I was looking for something different, but I continued to appreciate that current role and do the best I could. I knew I was going to change at some point, but I had to keep working at that current opportunity. And I was determined to reinvent myself to move my career in a new direction. So I studied hard and I earned that Salesforce admin certification. This kind of validated my knowledge and experience with the platform and gave me credibility in the ecosystem. After 2 years of networking, of going to all these different user groups and world tour events, I attended a Northern New Jersey user group meeting, and I met a friend of mine today now named Alex Ortiz, who was from OwnBackup, and he said they were hiring. I did some research and I was impressed by their technology. I mean, they were a small company, but I kind of saw the potential there. They had founders with a proven track record. So this looked very promising to me. I interviewed, and instead of joining immediately, I wound up doing consulting for several months. The consulting allowed me to earn some extra money while I evaluated the options. I was writing technical blog posts to help drive traffic to the OwnBackup website. I got to really learn about the need for Salesforce data protection and the deficiency in these default solutions. If anybody's ever worked with the Salesforce weekly exports, and tried to restore, what a challenge that can be. So my final consulting project was writing an ebook, and it's called The 7 Steps to Recovering Lost Data Using the Salesforce Weekly Exports. If you search for that, it's still out on the OwnBackup website today, and it still gets lots of downloads. But it's such a complicated process that I was convinced in the need for an automated solution like OwnBackup. So I went back, talked to the team at OwnBackup, and I accepted a position. Now, finally, I had landed a new job, but now came the hard part. I had to jump in with both feet. Week 1 was boot camp, right? I'm learning, fortunately I had some time in this consulting. I knew the products, but now I had to learn all their internal processes. And I went through that boot camp with 3 other new hires, and we were all kind of learning together. Week 2, I worked a booth at a Salesforce World Tour event in New York City. Now, in my second week, and I'm already out there talking to customers. In month 2, I went out to Tahoe Dreamin', which is a regional event out in California. And then right after that, I attended our first sales kickoff. We were moving so fast as a startup, but I really enjoyed the time on the road, evangelizing the need for Salesforce data protection. So I went on to spend my first 2 years at OwnBackup as a sales engineer. And if you're not familiar with that, I think it's a very interesting role. It kind of allowed me to mix my technical background with communication skills, right? I'm doing this. I like to talk. I've gotten a little better at it over the years, I hope. But at OwnBackup, we take the time to learn about our prospects' business. We want to tailor a demo to their specific needs. So I did lots of product demos. I ran proof of concept workshops so they could evaluate our applications against their own Salesforce data. And then I became a Salesforce user group leader in New Jersey, with my friend and now coworker, Gina Marcus. So it was very rewarding to give back to the community that was so helpful to me. And that leads me to my next lesson. So try to give more than you get. I think a lot of people do this, and I hope you do, because I think it really is rewarding to give and help. And while I don't have a direct sales role, I am part of our sales team. So I've always found it easy to promote our solutions, since I believe in our mission that no company operating in the cloud should ever lose data. So most people assume that since their data is in the cloud, it's safe. And it absolutely is. I mean, if you think about Salesforce, it's a rock solid platform. 99.999% of the time, you're going to be able to log in, you're going to be able to access your data. They have amazing availability and uptime. I think the thing that people get confused with is, well, then why do I have to back it up if it's protected, if I can always get to it? And the problem is that you can only access your data as it exists right now. If you change data, now you can see the changed value. But what OwnBackup does is automated daily snapshots. So imagine you had a data load or an integration that went wrong. How do you roll back your Salesforce org to what it was yesterday or the day before or a week ago? If somebody accidentally merges a bunch of accounts and deletes records, how do you unmerge? How do you roll those back to what they were before? So that's really what OwnBackup solutions are designed for. And what I found is that, we work very hard at these events. And I found it rewarding to interact with so many people, whether it was at, Salesforce community events like Dreamforce, World Tours, or those regional Dreamin' events. But I want them to become a customer so they can benefit from our solutions. Now, OwnBackup continued to grow and new opportunities in the company were opening up. So in 2019, I approached my current manager, Mitch Gauss, about a job opening on the alliances team. Now, I didn't have much experience working with partners, but I did know our applications and I knew the Salesforce community very well. So I started as a partner enablement manager and was able to leverage my experience in this new role. As much as I love being an SE, this was an incredible opportunity to magnify my impact with our partners. Instead of dealing directly with our customers, I was now speaking with our partners. I was working directly with Salesforce, with ISVs. ISVs are any application vendor on the App Exchange, right? That's a partner that's put out an application. We want to talk to them. We want to see how we can complement their solutions. And I think, the other partner that I spend a lot of time with is SIs or system integrators. You think about the companies like Deloitte, PwC, Accenture that go out and install and implement and configure Salesforce environments, right? It's great to be able to speak with them. So I get to present to admins, developers, technical architects, account executives, managers, customer success teams, and security professionals. This is a constant challenge for me to understand their unique needs and demonstrate how our solutions can protect their valuable data and configuration. So as you can see, I've been working for a long time, but I am energized by the incredible talent of our team. And as I get older, I realize that, you'll never be younger than you are today. Think about that for a second, right? Time flies by, months turn to years. I feel young, but the gray in my beard here says otherwise. It's been amazing to watch OwnBackup's rapid growth over these last 5 years. When I joined, there was only 20 of us. Now we were over 500 strong and heading towards 1,000 team members next year. And the best thing I can say about a rapidly growing company like OwnBackup are all of the options. We have young people joining right out of college in entry-level positions. And I've seen many of them gain experience and then move to other departments like office admin or human resources, customer service, support, marketing, finance, even alliances. Or I see a lot of them rise up in our sales department to become account executives or managers. I really like the quote that says, "A rising tide lifts all boats." That's kind of what's happening at OwnBackup. And I'm just one example of someone who's been able to move up from an individual contributor to a director level. And now as a manager, I'm adding people to my team. So if you want to get started with a career in the Salesforce community, utilize the resources I mentioned. Trailhead, absolutely. Everybody here should be working on Trailhead and earning those badges, earning those, those advanced badges, and just kind of building up your experience. Explore blogs and podcasts. There's so much information out there. I listen every time I'm driving back and forth to work. I'm listening to Salesforce podcasts and learning from different community members. If you haven't, and I think most of you probably have, you're here today with Salesforce Republic, but join the Trailblazer community. Go out there, read what other people are doing, contribute, attend events. Like I said, most of them are virtual right now, but in person is starting to come back. And it's a great chance to network. I know after I'm done talking, I would love to speak with any of you and have that chance to network. If you can, find a mentor. If you know, hey, this person is doing really well, how did they do it? See if they will help you, see if they will guide you on your own journey. And the last one, which I think is super important, is get active on social media. Now, I'm not talking about Facebook or Instagram. I'm talking about LinkedIn, Twitter. Salesforce has a huge community on Twitter. It's a great way to share information, and it's a great way to raise your own presence in the community. So as I said earlier, many people have helped me along the way, but that brings me to my last lesson. Acknowledge and thank others often. There's so many people that have helped me over the years that I'm truly thankful for their kindness. But one person in particular is my friend, Mike Smith. Now, Mike and I worked together early in our careers, but as our careers started going in different directions, we stayed close as we both got married and raised families. He saw promise in the Salesforce community much earlier than I did. As a consultant, he implemented Salesforce at my company way back in 2009. It took me another 5 years to see what he already knew. Yes, I am a slow learner. But when I was ready for a career change, he took me to my first Salesforce event. He opened my eyes to all the possibilities. And we then became constant companions, attending user groups and community events. I know I could not have done this on my own. And I thank him constantly for encouraging me to do better. So as far as Mike was concerned, after years of independent consulting, he actually took a role at Salesforce, and now he has his dream job. So I can't thank him enough. But the journey is never alone. I think the key is to surround yourself with good people and help each other along the way. I have one last thank you. It's to all my team members at OwnBackup and to the Salesforce Republic team for letting me share my story. I'm happy to answer any questions, and please feel free to connect with me through social media or my email.
Fantastic, thanks, Matt. There's a couple of questions in the chat. Is Salesforce a good long-term career?
You know, it's interesting, Joe, right? Because it's like, I think most people that I meet now are like, oh, I wish I got started in Salesforce sooner. And I don't know anybody that doesn't say that. Everybody wishes they had started sooner. And, you know, you see the way Salesforce is growing, it's not going to stop. I mean, it's exponential, right? It's as they acquire, you know, companies like MuleSoft and, you know, even with the recent Slack acquisition, you can just see the Salesforce ecosystem growing and growing. So if you're not already active in the community, I highly recommend it, because I think, you know, like I said, for the last 10 years, it's been an amazing journey for me. But the last 5 years at OwnBackup, it really, you know, reinforced how strong this community is and the possibilities.
There is another question in the chat, which is, which clouds does OwnBackup support?
So OwnBackup will back up anything that resides on the Force.com platform. So something like Marketing Cloud that's off platform, we tried to work with the Marketing Cloud team, but the APIs that they have weren't quite up to what we needed. So that's the only thing we can't back up. But any application, and you know, we deal, as I said, with a lot of ISV partners. So Encino does banking and Viva does healthcare. Applications like Copado that are written on the platform, we can back up all the data for those applications.
We've had another question in the chat from someone who is a certified Salesforce administrator. They're still learning Salesforce and trying to land their first job. Do you have any tips for someone who's looking to land their first job in the ecosystem? They say that they've got a career gap of 4 years, so it's been quite tough.
Yeah, no, I struggle with the same thing. Like I said, I had stayed at that one company too long, and then it's hard to switch, right? People want to know what you're working on. So the one piece of advice, I don't know if you heard it in my talk, but I truly believe is, you know, do you have a job currently? You know, what are you currently working in? And is that something that you could bring value to that company? You know, if the company you're working at uses Salesforce, but you're not, you know, involved with that yet, could you get involved? Could you go through, you know, Trailhead? Could you get certified? Could you start building a project at that current company, which would then launch you into another opportunity? If not, I have heard people that have volunteered for nonprofit organizations, you know, volunteered their time, go out and spend time there to just do data entry, to work with them. And maybe, like I said, it's you know, I think Darren said earlier, it's that accidental admin. Sometimes you get in and start working with the application and figuring out. I know people that have created applications for home. You know, if you're a music fan, you create an application to catalog all your you know, your albums. If you're collecting something else, you can do different applications like that. So anything that you can dive into and then tangibly show somebody else, hey, look what I built. This is what I'm learning, and this is how I can apply that. There's a need for Salesforce admins, for Salesforce developers. So if you build that skill set, I think you'll be able to find something.
Definitely, thank you. And we have another question that's more tailored around OwnBackup. It's how does OwnBackup align with the data protections around various countries, such as GDPR?
That's a good question. It's interesting because if you think of a regulation like GDPR, it's that ability for, you know, a lead or a contact, you know, to reach out to that company and say, hey, I want to be forgotten. Take me out of your system. So imagine you go into Salesforce and you say, okay, we're going to remove you and we won't send you any more information, right? But if you've taken that data and you've extracted it to the weekly exports, or maybe you're running some kind of ETL tool and syncing data out to a SQL database or a data lake somewhere. Well, you also have to remove that data from those quote unquote backups. So with OwnBackup, what we've done is we built in the ability to search any of our backups. And if you make that change in Salesforce and remove that data, you can also make that change in your backups. And what we'll do is basically make that data inaccessible in the backup files. So now you can be GDPR compliant today and moving forward in your Salesforce instance, but also today and moving back into your past with OwnBackup.
Another person has said, thanks for sharing your story, Matt. What are new challenges and learnings you are investing your time in now?
So it's interesting. We just acquired a company a few months ago called RevCult, and that's now becoming our fourth application. So OwnBackup does backup and recovery, we do archiving, we do sandbox seeding, and now with this new application, we're calling it OwnBackup Secure. It's about data protection and governance. It's really about what data do you have in your Salesforce instance and who can access that data. So I've really been spending a lot of time in learning that application, but as Joe was mentioning earlier, we are branching out to other clouds. So I'm starting to learn the Microsoft system, and I'm starting to learn what that ecosystem looks like, and I'm looking at other applications. We work really closely with partners like AWS, and that's a whole nother ecosystem. So I think, it never stops. There's always different avenues you can go. And Salesforce is obviously the one that we're all here to talk about today, but there's many other clouds, there's many other supporting applications, and there's so many opportunities. Like I said, a lot of people think, I'd like to go work for Salesforce. That's great aspiration, but maybe you can't get in there yet. So can you work for somebody that's using Salesforce? Can you work for a partner like OwnBackup that supports Salesforce instance? Can you go work for a consulting company and learn your skills there? There are lots of options throughout the ecosystem, and I feel like I just continually try to learn and keep up with what's going on.
What advice would you give to someone who wanted to start or get involved in a Salesforce community user group?
If you're here today, that's a great start, right? I mean, Salesforce Republic is one of the largest communities, and you're getting a chance to network now. It's see all the other people that are on this call, see if you can make connections. Like I said, if this is an in-person event, and that's really, when I started in the Salesforce community, that was the best thing. If you could go to an in-person event, they bring in some interesting speakers, you learn about a particular topic, but both before and after that speaker, that ability to just meet other people. What do you do? What is your role? And try to see how you can help each other. I think for me, the most interesting thing was I never went to a networking event to say, hey, how can you help me? Because I think that turns people off. I think you go to that networking event and try to get to know somebody, right? And over time, maybe you go, oh, I talked to that guy at the last meeting, and I know he worked at OwnBackup. I would like to talk to him again and see what kind of opportunities are there, right? It's about building relationships. And then that, the more you attend, the more you can start helping others. So it really is, it's an amazing community. I think in my experience, most people that are in the Salesforce community are very willing to help, and somebody's helped them, and now they're willing to give back. I mean, Darren, you've been doing this for 14 years. Do you attend user groups? Have you seen that in your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, prior to the last couple of years, working in London, I would regularly go to the admin user group.
Yep.
But I would also go to Pardot user groups, Marketing Cloud user groups, and there's such a great crossover of skills and the connections that you can make, the friendships you can make, and there's a lot of great friendships to be made, but also the value that's given not only in the actual meetings but in the user group chats online as well in the community.
Somebody just posted in the chat, I see if you're based in London, they got an in-person event December 3rd. And I highly recommend that. I mean, if you're comfortable, if you're vaccinated, you're comfortable in going out. And I mean, after being, virtual for the last 2 years, it feels like it's great to get back out and see people. And like I said, it's maybe getting out of your comfort zone, right? You got to go into this group, you got to kind of introduce yourself, you got to give your pitch. And I know for me, the more of these groups I attended, then at some point I said, I'd like to speak, would you let me present, right? And the user group leaders are thrilled, because as a user group leader, that's our biggest struggle, is trying to develop content, trying to get people to present. So if you came in and even if you said, look, I know you got a meeting coming up, I just want to do 5 minutes on flows, right? Anything like that, they'll take it. They'll be happy to schedule you with somebody else. And it's really good. I mean, even preparing for this, right? I had to go back and kind of research and put this together. And I think anytime you can do that, you always sharpen your skills. And like I said, it's really nice to be able to share my story, but I love hearing what other people are doing and how I could potentially help you along the way.
I actually had a question based on your talk, because one of the things you mentioned was like utilizing LinkedIn and Twitter to build your connections in the ecosystem. Do you have any advice for someone who's looking to, I guess, like put their name out there and maybe create a brand for themselves in Salesforce through social media?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think, when you start out, right, and, if you're just new to LinkedIn and you see that you connect with somebody and they're 500 plus, it's like, how do I get to 500 connections? That's like the magic number, right? And if you just start randomly sending out invites, most people are not even going to accept it, right? It's about getting out there and doing that networking. And I would always ask at the user group meetings, like, oh, nice to meet you. Do you mind if I send you a LinkedIn connection, right? And then they know it's coming and they're more apt to accept it. But I think the other part on both Twitter and LinkedIn is creating content. If you go to a user group meeting, take a picture, say that you were there, tag the right people. Again, as a user group leader, I love it when somebody comes to our meeting and they promote that they were there. If you're on this talk today and say, Salesforce Republic did a great job of sharing out that this meeting was happening today, right? LinkedIn, Twitter, they're promoting that. And you can do the same thing for yourself. Like, what are you currently working on? You see an interesting news story, share it. And what I found, especially with Twitter, is if you follow people, a lot of times they'll follow you back. So find somebody that you think is interesting. If you want to go to @MattK, MATK62 and follow me on Twitter, I'll follow you back. And you start to build up your own audience, right? And you start to comment on other people's posts. So it really becomes an exercise of doing it every day, maybe in the morning, maybe at night, whatever it is. Instead of going on Facebook or Instagram, go on Twitter, go on LinkedIn, look at what your connections are up to, like it, comment, and share. And I think they'll start reciprocating. But it's building it up from, whatever level you're currently at to a much higher level.
Hi, Matt. I actually have a question.
Sure.
I'm actually a Salesforce recruiter at Third Republic.
Okay.
So kind of on behalf of like my Salesforce network and the people I talk to every day. I know you said when you eventually chose to work at OwnBackup, there were a lot of reasons you decided to move to that company. So what would you kind of say people should be looking out for when they're making a move to a new like Salesforce partner or Salesforce end user?
No, it's a good question. Like I said, for me, like somebody had asked earlier, it was a bit of a challenge, right? I'd been in another company for a long time and now I'm trying to reinvent myself. It's hard, right? And I'm sure at Third Republic, you're looking for people that have experience. You're looking for skills, right? It's hard to place somebody that's brand new to the ecosystem. So as I said earlier, I think the best thing you can do is start to build up your skill set, whether that's your Trailhead profile and, making Trailhead Ranger with 100 badges or more, or getting a certification. It's a huge validation, right? Going through and studying for the certification, you have to do a lot of work and then you have to pass that exam. Now, that doesn't guarantee you're going to get a job, but it will separate you from somebody else, right? If there's two people applying for that position and one person's certified and one person's not, that certification is going to help. But I think it all comes back to real world experience. Anything that you can do on the platform that you can demonstrate to an interviewer that, hey, I'm not in Salesforce yet, but I do have these badges. I did get my certification and I built this project on my own that does this, that, or the other thing, right? They're going to see that you have the initiative, that they're willing to maybe invest time in you because you've already demonstrated that you've done all this work on your own to build your resume. And that's, a lot of people won't do that. A lot of people are looking for, hey, I want to get started. How do I start? This is how you start. You put some work in first.
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Matthew, for taking the time to, talk to us all this evening. I think we've all found it really helpful and insightful as well. So thank you very much. And thank you everybody else for attending.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.